All right. Welcome everybody to our special Earth Day presentation. My name is Lindsay Stover, and we also have with us Stina Troyer and Rachel Easton. This is the whole Harbor Wall Watch team you get tonight. Happy Earth Day, ladies.
Woohoo! Happy Earth Day.
So exciting. We have kind of a special presentation prepared for you tonight. We actually are starting, the three of us, our 9th year working together, which is really incredible to say. I'm still surprised. We've said it a couple of times over the last few months, and it's like hard to believe, right?
It's crazy.
It is crazy. But we, during that time period, we have had some fun adventures together. We have had some weird things happen, some just like very unique, feel like doesn't happen to anybody else type of actions happen to us. And I think a lot of those are just kind of in our own minds and our memories. And we thought it would be really fun to share that with everybody tonight. So we have titled this presentation Salish Sea Stories. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We have a few different categories that we're going to kind of go through, like animal encounters or funny moments. And each of us have 1 or 2 stories that we're going to share within each of those categories. So we hope that this is a fun way for you to spend your Earth Day evening. You have your favorite beverage in front of you, maybe you're eating dinner, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy our stories. We are live on Facebook, and so if you have comments or questions, Stina's going to be moderating the chat function. So if you see her over there typing away, she's not doing something else, I promise. She's focused on the program. She's just trying to answer your questions, and hopefully then she'll send them over to us. So
yeah, I'll moderate a little bit. So
yeah, perfect.
Make sure they get
wonderful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here because we do have a PowerPoint that we are going to have go along with this. And oh, I should get back to the beginning. That way we can have photos that we can see to help tell our stories with us. So our first category is animal encounters. Of course, that makes sense for Harbor Wall Watch because, you know, our job is to get people out on the beach or other environments and introduce people to the unique animals that inhabit the Salish Sea. So we have had, you know, of course, all the normal encounters on the beaches and, you know, crabs and sea stars and even octopus and things like that. But we've also had some very strange encounters. And so the first one we're going to start with actually is an octopus story. And this was back when we were at our old office. A few of our stories today originate from our old office. And so this had to have been, Rachel, what, like 2013, 2014, right around there?
It's got to have been, I think 2013.
Yeah. So early on, we all became a staff in 2013. So that was kind of the beginning of all of us working together. And I feel like a lot of our strange stories start with somebody called us and said, hey, there's something weird in the creek, and I think it's an octopus. And Rachel and I both kind of looked at each other like, no, it's not an octopus in the creek. They must think it's something else, but let's go check it out. So we drove down there, and sure enough, it was an octopus in the creek. And it was so weird because it was, you know, kind of just hanging out in one spot. And we kind of were thinking, well, you know, maybe this was a female and her eggs had just hatched, and, you know, she had kind of wandered off as they do at the end of their life. And she was just kind of hanging out there. And then we were thinking like, oh, is there a den in the harbor somewhere? I mean, it got us thinking about all these cool things that we hadn't really thought about before. And I think a few people came by and were like, what are you looking at? And there's an octopus in the creek. Is there anything else you remember about this very strange encounter, Rachel?
I do. It did eventually leave the creek on high tide. So I feel like it probably wandered in on a high tide and then the tide left and it's like in fresh water for a minute and going, what the heck? And then when it came high tide again, it probably stayed low in the salt water and made its way out. Who knows what happened to that octopus?
I think I like moments like this because it lets you like do a little research and figure out, why would a giant Pacific octopus enter a freshwater habitat and learning about how the males kind of go wild at the end of their life cycle. So once they've, spread their genes, they just kind of lose it. And that was our best guess for why an octopus would be in the creek. So you get to have these weird moments and wonder and learn something new. So that's always kind of fun.
I love it. So it was probably just a surprise to be in the freshwater as we were to see it in the freshwater. It was a very fun call, though. We enjoyed getting out there and doing that. So, Stina, what's happening in this photo?
Yeah, speaking of other unique encounters, this is a picture of a baby harbor porpoise out on the Fox Island Sandspit, or Bella Bella Beach, or Demolay, whatever you want to call that beach. That is a place where the current can just rip. And somehow this little buddy got itself kind of not totally like beached, but definitely stranded in kind of this nearshore area. And this was a moment where we were on a beach walk. We had a big group in the public and lots of wonderful Harbor Wild Watch volunteers. I'm thinking of Kendra and Kendra and Kellen specifically. And, you always get those moments where it's like, hey, come look at this weird thing. And, it's like, okay, like, are we going to find some weird blob that's actually just a sea anemone? Not that sea anemones aren't cool, but this was definitely one of those, hey, check this out moments that was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. And we all worked together to give it a little gentle nudge into the deeper water where it was able to swim away. But haven't had an encounter like that since. But that was a pretty special moment where you kind of feel like you're saving the day for this little buddy. Then you just like want to imagine like the harbor porpoise parents out there like, okay, we're ready for them to all like breach with joy, like thank you. So I don't think that actually happened, but in my memory that's pretty much spot on. So
well, it's not a fish, but this is your fish tale, so you get to tell it however.
There you go.
So that's how it happened, right?
And then there was rainbows, and oh man, yeah,
double rainbows even.
Yeah, speaking of rescuing things, I think Rachel really has quite the rescue story for us this evening. So Rachel, turn it over to you.
So this is one of those like sad stories turned into a happy story. This is out at the Foss Waterway Seaport in Tacoma, and we noticed this gull. This is a juvenile type of seagull. I'm not sure precisely what type because the juveniles all kind of look the same. But it was swimming in circles, and it couldn't go more than, maybe just a couple feet in any direction. And what we determined was it was tied to something. Something was caught on its foot. And it actually ended up being caught on its wing. And so diver Tom here, he's one of our volunteer divers and esteemed board members of our organization. I was like, Tom, we have to do something. Like, I will wade in there, but like you're still in your wetsuit, so can you do it? And so he kind of paddled out, grabbed the seagull, cut it loose with his dive scissors, and then brought it close to shore where I had to help him because the seagull was not going to go easy. It thought it was dying, and they have razor sharp beaks. And so it was quite the adventure of, okay, hold here, you hold here, I'll cut, you cut. And so this is me cutting the last bit on it, little wrapped around the wing. And as soon as we did that, we were able to just set it right back in the water, and it just paddled away. So that was really great. And so it paddled like, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away, and then it like looked both directions, then it took off and flew. So we're like, oh, at least it can still fly. It's not just damaged on its feet or something like that. Like, everything's okay. And then the rainbows came, and he said thank you, and all the seagulls called to us, and it was beautiful.
Oh, yours included rainbows too? Oh, I knew that was something. Yeah, that's great.
Funny how all those stories include rainbows. So we had to include kind of a caveat to the animal encounters because we have had our fair share of dead animal encounters. I can't tell you, I don't look in drawers anymore at the Harbor Wild Watch office because somebody is preserving some dead animal somewhere, and I'm just tired of opening the drawer and being surprised. So I just don't do it. But the crew, everybody has a big heart for animals. And so when somebody calls and says, hey, we have this, or they're always thinking like, how can we utilize this and educate people about it, or take it to the right place, or, whatever course of action needs to be taken. The Harbor Wild Watch team is always ready to do so. So we'll start out with one that's very odd, especially the way that it ended. And I love the way Rachel tells this story. So Rachel, what's happening here?
So we got a call one day from the city of Gig Harbor that there was a quite large male otter roadkill that had happened right across Borgen Boulevard, right by Donkey Creek. And they said, hey, we have this otter. Do you know what we should do with it? Because they knew enough that it's a marine, it's a mammal, and it's kind of special, and like maybe it could be used for science or something. And I think they were thinking that we would taxidermy it. But we don't have the right kind of qualifications or permits for that. So we contacted our friend Diana Lamborn of Fish and Wildlife and said, hey, we have a dead otter. Would you like it? It's in great condition. It's just roadkill, but it's big, and maybe you want to get a weight on it or some measurements. And so she was like, yes, 100%. But I can't do it for a couple of hours. Can you meet me at the Y? And bring a cooler. So I was like, sure. So I go to Albertsons, I grab a bunch of ice, I load up the cooler, but like I had to take the black body bag out in the parking lot to put the ice in and then cover it over with ice on the top side. And I was like, if anybody sees these security cameras, it looked like I had like a leg in there because of the size of it. And it was obviously something I needed to keep on ice, and who keeps trash on ice, and what could it possibly be? And then we go to the Y, and I was like, well, I'll give it to you at the Y, but like, can we meet at the back of the parking lot? Because I'm handing you like a dead body in a cooler. I don't want to draw attention to us. And she was like, sure. So we park at the farthest spot and did this like back alleyway drop of this dead otter exchange, which is how it happened. So somewhere that otter has been used for science, but I don't know exactly where.
All thanks to your very strange drop or exchange, I guess,
Yes.
in the back. I always think about, if there were security cameras and, maybe like days or years later, these guards going through footage, like, oh, we missed something important.
Yeah, that redhead like dropped something. It looked dead. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
We're getting some love in the comments for Steph there. Part of the original Harbor Wild Watch staff, holding that otter bag. Quite doesn't look suspect at all. No way.
No.
Well, in the how to catch a naturalist, talking about dead things is a great way to get our attention, and we have a lot of skulls on display. And many of them are from a generous donation from Dr. Paul Kazdick, and we definitely appreciate his skulls, but we have to giggle a little bit about the nature of how they came into our possession, because back at the office, we get a phone call, hey, you ladies have a great skull collection, right? Yeah. Would you like to add some more? Just come on over to my basement and you can have all the skulls. And I'm like, sure, of course, let's do that. And so I let Lindsay and Rachel know, like, hey, I'm gonna go over to this guy's basement to pick up some skulls. And they immediately are like, wait, what? Like, no, Stina, like that is not safe. Like, this sounds terrible. And as bad as it sounds, it wasn't bad at all, because we now have like zebra skulls and just like a fantastic array of all these different things, but definitely kind of a funny context for basements and skulls and strangers, but we really appreciate the donation of those, and definitely giggle at how they all came to be in our collection. So good times.
It's a good story.
The boss definitely came out at me that day, like, this sounds like a terrible idea. And then I think we did some research, like, oh, like this is a former city council member, like we're good.
And I think he had all these skulls because he'd go to schools and do demonstrations about the different teeth, because it's, you go to school to talk about brushing your teeth, like, let's make it interesting and have some big cat skulls and some, I don't know, a camel skull, and talk about the different types of teeth and compare them to our own. And, dental oral hygiene is very important. Cheers to Dad out there, also dentist. Yeah, way to step up the game in the tooth department, I guess. But another dead story we have of people saying, "Hey, there's a dead thing. Want it?"
It really is the best way to trap a biologist.
Yeah.
Like, we were out at Salt Creek near Port Angeles doing an awesome low tide walk. This was, I think, the lowest tide of the year, and we've been out on the beach for 5 hours. We got up at, I think, 5:30 in the morning and left Gig Harbor to drive all the way 2 hours north to Port Angeles. We get there, we go do our beach stuff, we film, we're talked out, we're so exhausted. We're just like, we hadn't gone to the bathroom yet. There's no bathroom out there. We hadn't eaten yet because we were like, oh yeah, we'll be back at the car, but it's a long trek out there. And we're walking back and this gentleman paddleboarder says, "Excuse me, are you biologists?" Yes, why? I mean, we're all wearing our uniforms and extra tough boots and, backpack, have all our gear. He says, "There's a really giant dead thing with a huge eye in the middle of the creek. Could you tell me what it is?" And we're like, sure, let's have a look. And so we, like, energy levels just skyrocket again. Who cares about going to the bathroom? Like, there's a big dead thing and we need to know what it is. So we paddleboard out. We can't quite see it. Stina went out, Carly went out. They can't, it's a good 6 feet down in the bottom of this creek. So we asked the paddleboarder, I said, "Hey, if I give you gloves, would you go down and grab it?" And he's like, "Yep, sure." So he goes down, brings back this almost 5 foot long, giant, dead ribbon fish called the king of the salmon. And we were fascinated. We must have spent another hour looking at this thing, playing with, so you can see Stina taking video of its jaws because they were so fascinating, and looking at the huge eye. I mean, it's the size of a coffee cup. Like, it's a giant thing. And this was kind of a cool story because, one, we made the news, which is always fun for us. We love the publicity that we get from that. It was a total teaching moment where we could kind of teach people about, like, wow, this cool, amazing animal lives right off our coast. And it's really rare to see it except for when it washes up like this. So just cool to know some of the deep water animals. But this really launched our TikTok. We went viral for just a quick little video of this huge fish. And honestly, I think it's because of the game Animal Crossing, where people were commenting that it's an oarfish, it's oarfish. And when you get 7,000 comments on a video of people saying that it's oarfish, that's going to boost the algorithm. But that video has over 2 million views, and we got a ton of followers. This is one of our very first videos. So we're really grateful for this weird, cool thing that hooked a lot of people around the world into our TikTok account. So there you go. Even dead stuff can teach you things.
So exciting. And you guys wanted to actually take this back and preserve it, right? And so what happened there?
We were so bummed because of COVID. All of our connections that we have with local universities, various professors that we know, we kind of called around and we're like, "Hey, can we preserve it?" And everywhere was shut down. This is the heart of lockdown. Everything, they're like, "No, nobody sets foot on campus. We can't let you in. Sorry, no exceptions, not even for a big full dead fish." And I was unwilling to put it in my car without any, like, I didn't have a trash bag, I didn't have anything, and I was like, "Oh, the stinky dead." It's dead for a couple days here at this point. I don't really want to travel 2 hours home in the hot sun with that in my back seat, so we left it there, which was a bummer.
But you got so many cool photos and video that's totally worth it. Oh,
We did.
I love it. Speaking of dead big things,
Yeah.
Stina.
You don't always have to have people saying, "Hey, come look at this," because sometimes you get to the beach and you can just smell that there's something dead. This photo, I definitely will just, thank goodness there's not smell-o-vision invented yet, because this picture stinks. We're doing some nighttime beach monitoring. This is out on Narrows, Narrows Beach Park, across from Tacoma. And we got to the beach and walked out to our monitoring site and could just smell something rotting. And so we got to do our science, do our things, and then we've been doing some sea star wasting surveys, which is kind of our chance to go roam the beach and look for sea stars. And shout out to our first Cocktails and Fishtails presentation, where this data helped list the sunflower star on the critically threatened list. So you can tune into Dr. Sarah Graven's presentation on that to learn more. But in wandering around the beach looking for sea stars, the smell got stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally we hear Mike, you know, hey, come check out this big dead 6-gill shark, which was just absolutely massive, washed up in kind of the high beach area. And this is just a cool look at it. And it didn't have its jaw, so we assumed that maybe somebody found it before us and harvested the jaw, where it has kind of really interesting teeth that look like, kind of work like forks and knives. So we weren't able to identify this based off the jaw, but just the size of it helped us figure out it was a 6-gill shark. So dead stuff's cool, even if it's smelly.
And it usually is, especially with sharks.
Yeah.
They're quite stinky.
Yeah, and you know, normally we like to really emphasize the Harbor Wild Watch. We did not cut the, we left this and Mike was like, oh, maybe we should have looked in its stomach and cut it open. And I'm like, I think we're glad we didn't do that. But Lindsay's gonna tell you a little story of our Harbor Wild, a little more aggressive nature to the Harbor Wild Watch staff when it comes to things invading our personal spaces. So Lindsay, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Yes, so this photo is actually our first office that we had. In 2013, we moved into a small room where all 4 of us were in one room. I always like telling people that when Stina tried to open her desk drawer, stuff had to move in order for that to happen. But we were all in this one office. It's actually the building, it's been renovated now, but right adjacent to the Tides Tavern, that white house that's on the water. I mean, you can't beat this incredible view. But it definitely had its infestation issues. There were many days where we were dealing with, ants that were coming out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden you'd be, on your laptop and you would have a trail of ants crawling over you, or you would hear kind of buzzing and you'd look up and the flying ants are everywhere, just surrounding you. So that's what this picture is. I'm getting rid of those things. But I think I think it's your favorite part about this. It was not my favorite. But I got to the office earlier than everybody else. And so when I arrived, I came through kind of the back door that we always entered through, and there was just a big old dead rat there. One of the big waterfront rats. And, I am not nervous being around sharks or things like that, but reptiles, insects, and rodents, not my thing, not a fan of them. So I was very uncomfortable. So I thought the best way, I needed to work. I wasn't going to leave, but I knew that I wanted to wait until the rest of the team came in, because Rachel and Steph both worked at the zoo, and I knew Rachel had a pet rat at one point, and they were used to working with those. Stina's not ever nervous about dead animals ever. I knew that. So I wanted them to come in and handle that. So I thought the best way to do it was to just sit up on top of my desk with my feet on my chair, with my laptop on my lap, and just wait for them to come in. And so when they walked in the office, that's what they found, was me like that. And I said, can you please take care of this rat? And they did. And one of you want to tell what you actually did with the rat?
So, I mean, in true naturalist fashion, we were like, ooh, free skull. But we have to bury the rat first. So it's actually right in front of this window here. We dug a little grave, but we didn't have a shovel or anything. So I think we used a spoon. And so we dug with a spoon, and then we were like, well, we don't want to lose it, so let's mark it. So we made a little rat grave, like a little headstone, and stuck it out there so we would remember it. But we waited too long. When we dug it up, it was already fully decomposed, no bones left at all. So Bummer.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we'll just have to wait till we come across another dead rat, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, well, we have had a few dead rats at our new wonderful office space. Well, not new now, moved in 2014. But we have had some issues, but thankfully the wonderful public works crew at the city of Big Harbor have come and taken care of that. They've plugged up all the holes for us. So we have not had a rat issue in several years, which
Yeah.
I am very happy about.
I don't know. We don't have a rat skull, Lindsay. I could really use one.
All right.
Well,
Well,
now people are going to send me rat skulls.
Especially because people often think our river otter skull is a rat skull. So when you think about the river otter skull, you're like, well, that
Like this
skull is
big.
really the size of the body of a rat. So to be able to have,
Tiny one would be great.
We need. Anyways,
oh.
maybe we can move on to some more inspirational.
Yeah.
I think it's time. Yes, I don't know if I should be worried that we have more dead animal encounter stories than we do animal encounters. We have more. These are the ones we're choosing to share with you. So the next category is aha moments, and I think that this is moments that we've had where we're like, oh, wow, what we're doing is really important. We're making an impact on people's lives, and just kind of that. I love what I do. So we're going to start out with Stina telling us a little bit about some plankton.
Yeah, so this is, we get the opportunity to work with students and the public. And as fun as it is to show them all the big, cool things out on the beach, it's also really important to take a look at the base of the food web. And so we'll bring microscopes out either to the beach or out on the dock, and we'll do a plankton tow where we collect the tiny microscopic things living in the water and take a look and talk about their importance. And we get to see the phytoplankton, which is kind of the different diatoms and algae that live in the water, as well as the zooplankton, which is the little animals, so baby barnacles, baby sea stars, all this cool stuff. Like, it's just an incredible world that you can only see using a microscope. And I'm just remembering this kid who had done all this learning about plankton, and then we saw some trash floating by in the water. And they're like, oh, like, can we help protect this place by removing the trash? And I'm like, oh, of course. So we were out on the dock at Jersich Dock, and we got one of our nets to kind of scoop this plastic bottle out of the water. And then I was like, okay, there's, a recycling bin up on top of the dock. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, but what about the plankton? And I was like, and so we shook it off really good before he took it to go recycle it. And it was just this moment where he's like, oh, like, you could see the connection and the care of like, I just learned about this thing and I'm going to protect it. And I'm also going to protect the microscopic stuff in the water too. So yay, heartwarmed. We're doing good stuff. So I appreciate that kid and that moment quite a lot.
So good.
And then another kind of fun moment, because it's not everybody's cup of tea to be, handling the slimy, slippery creatures that we find here in the Salish Sea. And I just love this picture. We had a group of preschoolers come out to do some community science beach monitoring with us. And I just shout out to Joanne Moore, who was, getting these kiddos to count along the number line, count the number of snails in a square. Like, they were just rocking and rolling. But when it came to the fish seine and the seaweed, the slippy, slimy things, like, ooh, like this little girl here just perfectly sums it up. Like, no, thank you. I do not really want to touch or be involved with this. Like, I'm freaked out. This is awful. But we are sneaky, these educators here with Harbor Wild Watch. We, aren't going to throw you in the pool right away, but through some little baby steps, we eventually had this kiddo like wrapping herself in seaweed, being the kelp queen at the beach. So just that kind of transformation of taking something that maybe you don't really know about or you're scared of, and you don't have to wrap yourself in it. Like, that's not required. But by the end of a program with Harbor Wild Watch, I like to think you'll at least care a little bit more about it. And I think that's important, because if you're afraid of things or you don't know about them, it's much harder to care about it and take action to protect them. So changing hearts and minds here, folks. It's just makes me so happy to be able to do that. So
love it too, because it's like this was only within a span of a couple of hours, and what a huge transformation. And these pictures just
So
demonstrate it perfectly. Oh, love it.
Oh, this photo just sends me. I love it. The woman, I wish I knew what exactly Megan was saying to her, but I didn't have a photo for the actual story that I'm going to tell. But many of you know we've done touch tank programs at the Scansey, the Waterfront Farmers Market that happens right there in the park outside the Harbor Wild Watch building. And so we have cool creatures, we put them in tanks, and we have volunteers and kids who are interpreting and basically talking to people about them. And one of the vendors for the farmers market kind of came by, and she stayed at the outside of the booth, and she did kind of that like, oh, I don't like what they're doing in there, but I'm curious. But she was so nervous to even like come closer. And so that was like her first pass. Well, we're there at the farmers market for like hours and hours and hours. It's a full day. And then like about every hour she would come closer and she'd linger a little longer. She'd kind of peek into the tanks a little bit. And by the end, she's reaching in, she's picking up a crab, she's telling her friend all about this cool creature, and isn't it amazing? And it's so great. And it was just one of those transformations. Like, I don't know anything about these sea creatures to I'm so curious and I need to know more, and I can't get enough of the information that these people are presenting for me. So it's just a really heartwarming, like, oh, see, it can be really great. If you know about it, you'll want to protect it.
So it's not just changing the hearts and minds of the kids. We're actually able to change hearts and minds of adults too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite. Kids are easy. You know, you just tell them it's weird or gross or cool, and they're on board. But adults are a little harder to sway in most cases.
I don't know if this one got an honorary spot in the aha moments, although it's another cool dead thing. We came across, let's see, where we're at Sunrise Beach for this find. This is a carcass of a Humboldt squid, which I like to, I guess, give a little cheers to some more of our education that we do. We do these squid dissections using the market squid that you can just get at your local seafood places. And that knowledge helped us determine that this was indeed just a bigger version of the native species of squid that we find here in the Puget Sound waters. And this is Dylan's hand here holding the pen, which is the internal shell of this animal. And, you know, just kind of that comparative anatomy moment where it's like, oh, this looks a lot like this other thing I've learned about. And then just kind of a cheers to the curiosity of our students. And this pen was full of liquid. And Dylan was like, oh, this thing's full of seawater. And I'm like, Dylan, how do you know it's seawater? And then he tastes it. And these are the moments where you kind of like are like, Dylan,
Look at that squid, dude.
But it was salty, and I think he decided, yeah, it is seawater, Stina. I tasted it, so now I know. So, you know, this curiosity that we instill in the children is unstoppable. It also reminds me of a moment with Zach, another Sea Stars and Beyond student, you know, wondering, does the unattached tentacle of the lion's mane jellyfish sting? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let me grab it, and ouch, yeah, it does still sting. So the things our students get to learn and know forever is just pretty great.
Love it.
Delightful.
You don't forget something like that, so it's great.
And I'm not surprised one bit that this was Dylan. I absolutely love Dylan. He's one of my favorite students, and you know what? He is so curious, and I absolutely love that story. Oh,
and of course, when it comes to aha moments, you know, both Lindsay and myself have been able to watch our kids kind of come along through this program. And Eli, he's 9 now, is the literal poster child for Harbor Wild Watch because we put him on posters because we're like, hey, we need a kid doing a touch. We need a kid smiling and holding a salmon. We need a kid, doing this. Okay, well, we'll just put Eli on it, which is great because he's been tagging along to these programs just about his entire life, which has been just super fun. The kid knows almost as much as I do about all these creatures and more. Like he'll just keep going and talking about all of them. In our print newsletter, we have a little interview with Eli coming out soon. I know Stephen's been working on that, and he's got ideas, this kid, about the Salish Sea, and they were wonderful. And then of course Evelyn. Evelyn is 4. And Evelyn would not take a bottle. So Evelyn came with me everywhere I went, and I worked. I think I only took about a month and a half of maternity leave. And so we called her the baby barnacle because I wore her in a front carrier, and she was always stuck to me, much like a barnacle was. And she came to me to marketing events. I think I'm at the Y here. We're out at the beach, and the girl just, it was what she knew. She just was like, oh, well, this is my day. This is what we do. We go to the beach, we get dirty, we get messy, we do it all. And now this is what she does. You can't keep her away from the beach. She absolutely loves it. Anytime her feet are wet, she is a happy girl.
Dope.
And then this is baby Bodhi, who just turned a year old a couple weeks ago, which is pretty incredible. I kind of had all these plans, watching Eli and Evelyn grow up with Harbor Wild Watch. I was like, oh, Bodhi's going to be in there. And, COVID kind of changed plans for his first year, but we have been able to get him out in the field. I want to say that he was like 3 months old in that picture on the left. This was my first time kind of heading out back in the field with the team after having him, and we went to Manchester, and that was his first beach walk. It was so much fun, and yeah, that was our first little adventure. So it was fun finally kind of being back together after a while not seeing each other. And then in December, for Giving Tuesday, one of the kind of portions of our program that we did was a story time with Bodhi, and he's holding, it's hard to tell, but he has a shark onesie on, and he's holding his whale shark stuffed animal, and we're reading about sea otters. That was the story we were reading. And I'm so excited for, when things kind of start to get back to normal, for him to come out on the beach with us and have all these exciting adventures that I've got to see Eli and Evelyn have over the years. And for me, Rachel and Sina are out in the field all the time. I'm not out as much, but most of my job has to do with fundraising. And so I write a lot of grants. And a lot of the times when I'm writing these grants, I'm talking about how the work that we do is so important to, preserve and protect this environment for future generations. And I always meant that. I always, believed it. But now having a member of a future generation of my own, it definitely hits closer to home now. And it's exciting to think about the future of Bodhi. And I was just telling Rachel before the program started, I need to get Bodhi a little toddler Harbor Wild Watch shirt because he needs to rep that this summer.
Oh, yeah. Get him some swag.
Eli, your poster child status is being challenged.
True. We got a new poster boy in the house.
I use those photos in so many marketing materials of Eli because he's so photogenic. It's wonderful. All right, so we're going to move on to some funny moments, and there are many of them, but we chose just a few. So we're some of them are making fun of ourselves and, maybe not so smart things that we did that ended up being now a funny story to tell. So we're going to start with what we all call the whale incident. I'll tell you why that's not entirely accurate. But I think it was Orca Network that we were watching, right, Rachel?
No,
We saw
somebody called me.
it did call.
It was
Okay.
a friend. Like, she's like, I heard there's a whale at the spit. Like, you might want to look into that. And I was like, I think I would have heard if there was a whale at the spit. And so I kind of ignored it for like an hour. And then somebody else texted me and somebody else texted me, there's a whale at the spit. You better get down here.
Yeah. So we were like, all right, let's go. And it was me, Rachel, and Steph. I'm not, where were you, Stina?
I think she was
I'm
teaching.
wondering the same thing. How did I miss?
You were probably, teaching a hot lesson. Stina was at a school doing her thing. And so Rachel and Steph were in one car together, and I was in a separate car because I had a networking event to go to after this, but I didn't want to miss it. So we, drove out there as fast as we safely could. And lo and behold, we get to the spit, and there are dozens, if not maybe 100 people there already. And there's a gray whale in kind of hanging out in the channel that goes under the pretty bridge. And so we are super excited. We're taking photos, and then we see a news crew there. And, me put my executive director hat on. I'm like, we need to get on the news. Like, I don't see anybody else who looks like a professional here. They're interviewing people, like, we need to be interviewed. So I told Rachel, I'm like, all right, go against the water there. We're going to film you, and we're going to pretend like we're interviewing you, and hopefully we get noticed. And that plan worked perfectly. So it was Elisa Jaffe and Como 4. And all of a sudden they came over and they said, are you guys professionals? Are you biologists? And, can we interview you? And so Rachel did an interview. It was amazing, like she always does. And we got on the news that night, which was super exciting, telling about this, kind of unique thing that was coming in this channel that doesn't happen all the time. And so at the end of the interview, one of the production assistants said, oh, we need to make sure we have your correct information. Do you have a business card or anything? And I grabbed at my pockets. I was like, oh gosh, I don't have my business cards, but they're in my car. So like, hold on one second. So, wanting to make sure that we get the right information, I do what we tell everybody not to do on the beach. I ran on the beach back to my car. And of course, because, karma, I fell. And it hurt. I, felt it. I was, I knew I hurt myself, but I had all this adrenaline going through me, and I was like, get up, Lindsay, get your business card. And so I ran to my car, got the business card, brought it back to them. And then I had to hustle over to my networking event that I had. So I go over to my networking event. It's only, a few miles away. And again, I have this adrenaline pumping through my bones, and I'm like so excited telling people about this. And somebody says, Lindsay, you're bleeding? And so I look down, and I am wearing pants, and blood has just soaked all over through my pants. And I'm like, oh, all right. Like, I guess I hurt myself a little more than I thought. So I go into the bathroom and I kind of roll my pants up, and it's just a mess. And I can't really tell because there's so much blood, like what's happening. So I decided to go over to urgent care, and I had to get 6 stitches because when I fell on the rocks, I, of course, fell on the barnacles, and those little guys are very, very sharp. And it just kind of sliced open my whole kneecap area. And 6 stitches later, I was okay. But it doesn't feel as exciting to call it a barnacle incident. So we say the whale incident, knowing full well that the whale did not do this to me. It was the little barnacle that did it.
Did you just say knowing full whale?
Yeah, she definitely did. She's channeling her Stina punism. That's how long we've worked together. Is Stina's puns have transferred.
I had to do that for you, Stina.
So good, so good.
You're rubbing off on me. Yes. So, all right, here's another.
Oh, this story is one of my favorite stories because it's just so unbelievable. So we have a skull collection. This is prior to Dr. Kazak's donation. So we have mostly marine mammal skulls, and the marine mammal skulls have, they're protected animals. So they have paperwork that goes with them, and you're supposed to keep them all their parts all together, not separate them. And then we have this mastodon femur. So this is a leg bone of a mastodon. So think mammoth, but slightly different. And this washed out of a glacier. Somebody donated to us. It was really kind of cool for us to bring to classrooms and tell the story of like this is what used to live here on land, and here's what lives here now in the sea. And anyway, so I had this huge bone like this sitting on the counter. But I also had all these various different animal skulls around the room. Well, in the back of the room, I had like this tub that had all the paperwork and all the other various bone fragments. Sometimes like the lower jaws are fragile, so we don't want them to break. And in one of the bags, the elephant seal, we had a baculum that went with it. Now, if you don't know what a baculum is, be cautious in Googling it. It is a bone that certain mammals have in the male reproductive organ that helps them to impregnate a female. And for middle schoolers who I was talking to, they asked, like, what is this thing? And one boy grabs it out of the bag and starts waving it around like a wizard wand. And then I had to tell him what it was, and he was mortified. And of course, it spread through the school like wildfire that I had this basically penis bone in my possession. And what was wild about it was when the kids walked into the classroom, the first bone that they saw was this mastodon leg bone. And so I'll never forget, this girl walks in. She's like a sixth grader. She's so sweet and cute. And she goes, "That's the bone everyone's talking about." And the teacher and I fell on the floor with laughter. We could not get it together. We're like, "Oh, honey, no, no, no." Like, that's a leg bone of a really big animal, not a baculum. Let me show you the baculum. And it's, it's like a little stick. So it was quite the shock for her, I think, walking into that classroom, but it was so funny. So there you go. Now you know a little bit more about mammal reproduction.
Oh, great story.
So funny.
So here's another photo that we actually don't have the photo for it, but this is an event that took place at Jurassic Dock. So this is Rachel and I at Jurassic Dock.
This is like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This is a long time ago.
Yeah, because we have the old logo. You have the old logo on. You can't see the rest of this picture, but it was before we had like a tablecloth for our booth, and we were just taping a sign on it. It was very early days of Harvard Law Watch, the staff. And so anyways, we had started a corporate sponsor program, and one of our first big corporate sponsors was US Bank. And what part of their sponsorship, kind of one of the benefits, was that we had touch tanks. We brought them up to their office. Building is up on the top of Stinson. And so I brought touch tanks up basically to show all the bank customers, the types of animals that we have here in Puget Sound. And so that meant that we needed to collect. We weren't in the Scansy house yet, so we didn't have our wonderful touch tank where we could just take the animals out of there. So we had to collect the animals, do a little belly biology on the dock that morning. And so I was there with a couple of other of our team helpers. And, we were taking sea stars and crabs, and I think we had a few nudibranchs and, whatever we could find on the dock, and collecting water because it was a hot summer day and we needed to be able to change the water out. And so we were down there for a good amount of time. And right at the end of the collection, I'm kind of walking up with this big, huge thing of water. I can't remember what those are called, but those big tubs we used to have to transport water. And I feel this big plop on the top of my head. And if you've ever had this happen to you, you know exactly what it is when it happens. But I had a bird poop directly on my head, in my hair.
Not just any bird though, Lindsay. It should be noted, this was a gull, and they have super gross poop.
They really do. It was pretty bad. And here I am at the very beginning of my day. I have made a commitment, and I don't have, I'm away from my home. I don't have access to really good, shower or even a good sink. This was the Jurassic Dock and the bathrooms that before we have the nice, beautiful ones that we have now. So this was the old bathroom where there was a tiny little sink. I don't even think the water worked very well in there. The mirror is, I don't even know why we had a mirror in there, because it was all fogged and rusted and you couldn't really see anything. So it was one of our current board member, Anthony, his daughter, Camille, who came in the bathroom with me and tried to help me get some of this bird poop out of my hair. So I literally didn't have bird poop in my hair all day long. But it didn't work very well. I still had a lot in there, and I just had to go for about 5 hours and sit up in the hot sun with bird poop in my hair. It was pretty bad. I know I could smell it. I'm sure everybody else could smell it, and they're thinking, wow, this woman needs to shower more. It was in the back of my hair, so you couldn't really see it. I think when people were coming up to the touch tank, but it stunk. I have never been so happy than to go home and take a shower that night, or that evening, because it was really not fun having poop in here all day.
I don't know if this is real, but maybe this is because of this incident. But if I've heard that if you get pooped on, it's good luck.
I heard that too, and I can appreciate that now, but in the moment, definitely was not feeling that. Was not feeling the good luck of it. All right, so, Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could say that this is the only photo of me doing this. What has happened in this photo is I was not paying attention to the waves. I was filming. I was looking at I think it was a cool tuna kit, and this wave comes up and just whoosh, got me. But the story from another day that I couldn't find the photo of, and I know I have one just like this. We had a group of 7th grade girls come out for a Tech Trek, which is this really cool STEM opportunity for these girls at the summer camp. So they stay at a local college and they have these different outings. And one of the outings was they came out to us and we got to do a little bit of salmon education at Donkey Creek. And then they walked on down to the Eden Boat Park and we did a fish seine, which was really, really cool because we got to capture live fish. They got to help count and track and monitor them. And it was really great. But in the creek, we were looking at bugs. And so I had to go collect some bugs. So we kind of go down there and I grab the bugs and we do the lesson. And then it's time to put them back because I can't just like chuck them on the ground. I have to go put them back into the stream. And I stepped in the wrong spot and I just end over end barrel rolled basically into the creek. And my butt is covered in black, sticky, gross, silty mud. And it's the beginning of my program and I'm literally leading the field trip with Stina. I can't just leave. I can't, like, what do you do? So I go rummaging through my van. I'm like, there's gotta be a change of clothes in here. And I had a pair of workout pants, hot pink, like tight capris that I had to change into. And so I was like, okay, you guys go on ahead. I'll meet you there. And so Stina leads the group and I change and hustle and catch up to them. And nobody seemed to notice right away that I had changed from like nice professional khaki shorts to hot pink tight pants. But eventually they noticed and they're like, were you always wearing those pants? And I was like, no, I was not. Way to be observant. Yes, I went into the creek. So it pays to be prepared with a change of clothes. That's maybe not hot pink tight pants. So there you go. I wish I had a change of clothes on this date because we were out. I had to ride the ferry home and then drive 2 hours in these pants. So that was a poor choice on my part as well.
The struggle is real.
Keep your butt dry, guys. That's my only advice to you.
I think, Rachel, you're the one who told me to always keep spare clothes in my car.
It is. It's been like, I didn't realize it until I became like a mom that it was kind of a critical thing because you never know when a kid's gonna puke on you, like, or the diaper change is gonna go awry. Like, you gotta be prepared for those sort of things. But like, these was my pre-children days. I didn't know. Yeah, too funny.
Oh, okay, so that's the end of our story portion, but we just have a couple we're calling rapid fire questions that we thought would be fun, so you could learn a little bit more about kind of our favorite things related to Harper Wild Watch. So I think we're gonna do it just quickly, say it so that we can just, get that rapid fire effect. So we'll go Stina, Rachel, Lindsay. How about that?
I might chime in that if for anyone tuning in, feel free to also answer this.
Oh yeah,
to celebrate Earth Day with us. So
ready. I love that. And I will also throw in here that I don't know if she's still on, but I saw that one of the original staff members, Steph McCaffrey, was tuning in. So Steph, I don't know if you got to hear the story that we told about the otter exchange, but rewatch this when it's over or watch it on YouTube, and you will get to relive that moment because there is a photo of you in it. So hi, Steph. All right, so we're gonna go Stina, Rachel, Lindsay. Ready? Favorite beach?
Fox Island Sandspit.
Ooh, right where this is taken, Salt Creek.
Penrose State Park. Penrose Point State Park. Yeah, for sure. Okay, why?
I like the Fox Island Sandspit because it has the singing tube worms, and I feel like that is such a fun thing to like stop and make everyone just be totally quiet and listen to this creaky, weird noise that the tube worms make as the water's settling when the tide's going out. And
Okay, but can you impersonate it? Because I think everyone at home would like to know what it sounds like.
no, but I think we can make a great TikTok about it, and we'll share it later.
Okay, good idea. I love it. My favorite is Salt Creek. We got to visit for the first time this year, and it's been like a place I've always wanted to go, but I work on every low tide, so I've never really gotten to travel. But because of COVID, we were kind of allowed a little bit more freedom to be able to travel when we weren't doing public programs. And so for the first time I went out there, and then I went back 2 more times in the same year. Like how many times can I justify going to this amazing place? And I like it because it has both sandy beach and rocky tide pools.
And I love Penrose Point because for me, it's the place where I probably saw the most, and at least like my last good memory of seeing big sunflower stars at the very end. And I think, Stina, you mentioned the other day that sometimes you can still see small ones there. But that's just that's special. The spit is so amazing, and being able to walk all that distance and just, it's a beautiful place. Okay. Next up, we have favorite animal.
I'm gonna go flatworm. That was hard.
Octopus, giant Pacific octopus.
I would have to say sharks in general.
Which shark specifically?
I mean, if we're going local here, we'll go with six-gill because it's the largest, local shark. But if we're saying any sharks, I'm going to go with the white shark.
I thought you were going to say dresser shark.
I do. It's really hard to choose.
That's a good point. This is a dangerous game to play with biologists who know so much about animals. Is like you can pick a favorite with every like tiny little micro category. I picked octopus just because it's a species that is so intelligent, but is also like related to a clam, which is weird and cool, and I love it.
Perfect. I picked the flatworm because it's like a slimy little thumbprint moving on the beach. It's one of those things that you flip a rock over and people are like, oh, there's nothing there. And you're like, but wait, what's this? And it's one of those, doesn't have any bones, but it has 2 little eye spots. And I always like to make the joke that it winked at you. People just get to take a closer look and be like, oh my gosh, there's this little blob of slime that's alive and moving. And it's like strangely adorable. And I think, getting people to take a closer look that's the duty of the flatworm for me, is that little segue into
love it
delight. I don't know, it's great.
And I chose sharks because they are the animals that first got me interested in the oceans. My sister, who I think is watching, she was fascinated by sharks, and she's 5 years older than me, and I wanted to be like my sister, and I was like, well, I like sharks too. And then I started learning about them, and it's what made me want to study marine science. So that was my aha moment.
Love it.
Young child. Okay, last rapid fire. Favorite program?
Beach monitoring.
Get your feet wet.
Here into the night.
Nice. Ooh, I'm surprised we didn't have any overlap.
Yeah.
We do a lot of stuff,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, Stina, I kind of can guess why beach monitoring is your favorite, because you kind of started it for Harbor Wildlife.
Yeah, we've been we're monitoring 11 beaches currently. It could turn into 12 this summer potentially. But I think it's our community science program that we get to partnership with Dr. Michael Behrens at Pacific Lutheran University, which is kind of the person I blame for all the cool things I get to do in life. So I feel very thankful for that human. And just like how rad is it that we get to keep working together. And we've been doing some oyster restoration work through Harbor Wild Watch and other collaborative groups. And we've been doing, I think we'll get to do some seawall restoration looking. So just kind of having eyes on the beach and really getting an intimate knowledge of these places. We look at them in the summer and the winter every year. Having a program that when my parents come visit from Montana, they're like, are we gonna go beach monitoring? And they'll pack their rain boots when they come visit for Christmas, ready to come hit the beach in the middle of the night with me. So from the kind of things we get to do with this program, as well as the people who participate in it, it's just, I don't know, it's got a special spot in my heart.
Love it. I said get your feet wet because it's really the foundational program of Harbor Wild Watch is getting people to take the opportunity during a low tide to go walk and kind of carefully look through different habitats. And there is so much, we can find life and evidence of life in every beach at every tide, but when we get a really nice low one, we can travel farther into that environment and we can see even more species. And my favorite thing is when somebody says, I had no idea this lived here. Because you just turned on a light bulb and you can't take that back. But people are always going to forever remember this encounter they had with maybe a winking flatworm or maybe something dead even. But it's, I think, a really great way to establish a sense of place and the value that this habitat has, and really hope to inspire people to take care of it.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. I love it. I said Pierce the Night for a couple of reasons. One, because in my previous life, I was a scuba diver. I say that because it's been a really long time, 6 years since I've been diving, which Stina and Adam, if he's watching, they are always trying to get me to get back in the water. It's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. But when I was a volunteer with Harbor Wild Watch back in 2010, I was diving a couple of times for the organization. So absolutely love that aspect, but also because I think there's a lot of fear that people have about sort of just Puget Sound at night, because it's not this clear body of water that you can see all the way, like a tropical body, and it's what's down there. And I think people get so excited when they see divers down there and these amazing animals that you don't typically see at our other programs during our beach walks and things like that. And so it just it excites people in a whole different way, and I love that.
Awesome.
Fun. Well, that is all that we have for you tonight. I hope that you all have enjoyed our stories and feel inspired to be a good steward for the Salish Sea on this Earth Day. If you haven't already, you still have time to get outside and do something good for the Earth, or really, somebody commented in Facebook, every day should be Earth Day. And we hope that our funny and unique stories have inspired you to do something outside. We do have some opportunities for you to get out with us virtually coming up. So our May 1st is our next, it's actually our first kind of get your feet wet program, of our spring summertime programs on the beach. But our whole beach season is really just going to kick off here in the next month or so. So check Facebook and our website calendar for all the different dates that we have upcoming. And then of course we have our monthly science socials that are on the third Wednesday of the month. Those are hosted by Stina. We just had one last night. So if you haven't seen it, go back on our Facebook page, or in a few days, it'll be up on our YouTube channel. And Stina, who do we have for Cocktails and Fish
Already
Show?
up on YouTube. I got that up lickety split.
You're quick.
Yeah, that was with Tim White, fisheries scientist with the Global Fishing Watch group. And yeah, really just put some data and fish tracking movement together of how to better protect a bunch of really cool species. And so if you like sharks, you can tune into that to learn more about how tracking fishing vessels helps protect sharks. I don't know. It was fascinating. Really
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, I loved it.
And what do we have coming up next month, Stina?
And then we have coming up in May, we have Liz Scottman with the Surfrider Foundation. She's the Washington Regional Manager, and she's got quite the history in biology. So she's going to be delighting us in a presentation about the ocean sunfish, which is a mysterious denizen of the deep. And I've heard her give this talk before, and it is hilarious and informative and just overall wonderful. So you won't want to miss that. It's fascinating.
Yes,
The
Team
world's
Mola.
largest bony fish. So come learn more about that.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. And then we also, Rachel and Stina are currently in the virtual classroom, and we're going to be doing virtual field trips. So if you are a teacher or you know of a teacher who is interested in having our amazing educators in their classroom virtually, contact Rachel just at rachel@harborwildwatch.org. And she will connect with them and get them on the schedule. They are super fun. And we've actually taken all of our regular programs that we do in classrooms and for field trips, and they're virtual now. So they can still have fun and experience everything that we normally do. And of course, if you are not getting our weekly emails that Stina does an amazing job on, contact Stina at harborwildwatch.org, and she will get you on our email list. And that comes out with just, all the information about what's coming up. She's got fun stewardship clips in there, photos of the week in the field, and she's got a little bit of everything.
A big shout out to our virtual interns who have been doing a fabulous job putting together different creature features and stewardship tips. So that makes my life so much easier. So they put together great content, and I get to deliver it out to the people on that email list. So
Yes, and for all of our Steward Club members, you will be getting a print newsletter coming out very soon, which Stina and Rachel alluded to earlier. But if you are not a Steward Club member, this is a great time to join. You can go to our website, and it's $30 for an annual membership for students, $50 for an individual adult, and $100 for a family. And those funds go towards helping us support our organization for things that like grant funds don't pay for. So programs that maybe aren't grant funded, or other activities that we're doing like cocktails and fishtails. So check us out and please become a Steward Club member. The other way that you can support us is to follow us on one of our online platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and as you heard, we have quite a following on TikTok now. If you haven't gotten on there, we even have some board members who are on TikTok now watching us. It's not just for the young folks, all of us can be on TikTok. We have some really, really great content on there. And it's a fun platform to see what we do. So please follow us. We do have a new website that we're going to be launching here in about a month. So watch for that. That's super exciting. We'll let you know when that happens through email. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been fun telling our stories. And anything else you ladies want to end with?
I think Happy Earth Day.
Yeah, Happy Earth Day.
Our
Is it?
motto is
Exactly.
always
Learn,
fun.
have fun.
Learn, have fun.